This week, we asked the question, who is an underrated Catholic figure that more people should know about? Welcome to another episode of Off the Menu. I'm your host, Vincent Franchini from Tumblr House, here with an obscure Charles Coulombe.
Obscure? Obscure?
Yeah.
Well, I'm the great Charles Coulombe, the star of stage, screen, and sandy beaches. My name is heard in high places, wherever drunks gather, wherever people are really high. I'm admired by countless dozens across the globe. Uh, I endorse all sorts of products from uh, uh, pre-burial plots to canned dog food. I mean, obscure. Let me tell you something. I might have won the Academy Award one time if I'd, been in a position to be in the running for something. And that's not all. I met Swifty Lazar, smart guy. Obscure. Huh. Let me tell you. I met Stan Freberg. Huh? What?
I don't know these people.
You don't know Swifty Lazar or Stan Freberg?
Swifty Lazar? Who's that? Is that an actor? American
Sic
lawyer.
Transit Gloria Mundi. Sic Transit Gloria Mundi.
An American lawyer, talent agent, and deal maker, representing both movie stars and authors.
Yes. And he invited me to his Academy Award party. So there's smart guy.
What was that like?
I don't know. I didn't go.
What? Why wouldn't you go? That seems unusual for you.
Something came up. I mean, there's a lot of stuff I haven't done.
You just touted this guy as like one of the highest guys, and he invites you to a party, and you're like, well, something came up.
I had something else to do. I don't remember what it was. I mean, I regret not going. I mean, one night I was invited to the shindig at this bookstore in Glendale, which brought together the late great Ray Bradbury, Ray Harryhausen, and our Forrest Ackerman.
Okay.
Boy, did I wish I had gone to that, to see those three together. Man, but I couldn't go. I had something else going on. I don't remember. But I met Swifty Lazar. I met Stan Freberg.
Same
despite his name was Swedish, not Jewish.
Who's he?
No, he's a comedian. A comedian. Very funny guy, too. Yeah, see? Obscure. I knew Ray Bradbury. I knew, let me see. Who else did I know who you should be impressed by?
That girl from that the boomer person.
Janis Joplin.
Julie Newmar.
Yes, I meant Julie Newmar. Exactly, boomer person. Mr. Tact, Mr. Gallantry. Chivalry is not dead. It's just vacationing in Florida. Oh God. But so you see, obscure. Let me tell you something, okay? Let me tell you something. If I'm so obscure, how come I was invited to the coronation, huh?
Wait, what? What coronation?
Well, it actually wasn't the king's coronation. It was the Watermelon Queen in Tahunga, California.
The Watermelon King in Tahunga? Queen.
The Watermelon Queen in Tahunga, California, yeah.
How do you become the Watermelon Queen?
Well, she's the girl most shaped like a watermelon. What do you think?
Oh, I thought maybe she won a watermelon eating contest or something.
Well, with the way they're generally built, I'm sure that's quite possible. But no, it's the annual Watermelon Festival in southern Tahunga. It's a big deal in that part of the world.
Wow.
No, I didn't actually go.
Hmm.
But I was hoping when I said I was invited to the coronation, you would presume I met King Charles and you would have been impressed. But I wouldn't have expanded on it.
King of Rwanda is turning over in his grave.
Now you
Can't
see, I
even get a
never
mention. Can't even get a mention. What a sad day.
neither did the Archduke Otto, but they're both dead. Of course, so is everyone else I mentioned. I met the King and Queen of Sweden. Now that's something. I met the Duke of Kent.
You're the Pope's prisoner.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. I was held prisoner by Pope John Paul II in the Royal Palace in Bucharest. That is actually true, ladies and gentlemen. That's actually a true story. And yet you call me obscure. I went to church with Michael Jackson.
Oh, the what was it for? Are you talking about Princess Diane?
Princess Di, yeah, when Princess Diane died.
Yeah.
Yeah, the memorial for St. James, Wiltshire.
Yeah.
I went there with the inimitable Jim Thomas.
So, well, you're at all the places, but it's like you're in the background in all the places. You know, it's like you're in all these big time movies, but you're on the side just a little bit. You know.
Well, I mean, I'm not one of these flashy types. You know, pushes himself forward. I practice modesty.
Well, where has that gone? Where has that gotten you? Compare yourself
not very
to
far.
That's missed potential. That's like, I mean, you could have been a star like Oswald.
I could have been a contender. It's true. I could have been. Although I have to admit, several times outside the Ivy, back in the 80s, when I had lunch with a friend of mine who was dating a girl who was part of the Brat Pack at that time. I went to lunch with them a couple of times. And I would usually leave a bit earlier so they could have time together.
Yeah.
And when I would leave past the paparazzi, I would always say to them, gentlemen, I realize you have a job to do. But right now, my family and I are going through a very, very difficult time. And we would really, really request our privacy. A statement will be issued at a future date. Everyone's going to be included. No one's going to be left out. I promise you. But right now, we would just appreciate it if we were allowed to get through this period all on our own. And, you know, I talked like that, and it was wonderful to see the faces on the paparazzi because they're like, what the hell is this? What's this about? So, you see, and yet you call me obscure. Why did the paparazzi at the Ivy take my picture if I was so obscure? Ha! Can't answer that one, can you? I didn't think so.
Did you pay them?
No, I didn't pay them.
Did you pay them for a photo?
I just no. I have had people offer to take my picture for money, but I don't do that. I have professional integrity, and I used to have a table of my own at Musso's and at the Formosa Cafe.
What are all those boomer societies too? It's like the Blue Book, Who's Who, all these things.
Yeah, yes.
You're in these things too, so you're.
I am somebody.
You're somebody. It's definitely
who we don't know. Who we don't know. I even had my own table at the Polo Lounge. Smart guy.
You're a reader at the Huntington.
Yes, I was a reader at the Huntington. In the immortal words of Max Bialystock, do you know who I used to be? I meant something in this town once. I was a contender.
Oh man, we've got our own version of Sunset Boulevard over here.
I'm still ridiculous. It's the movies that went brain dead. Boy, the Norman Desmond. I'm ready for my close-up, Mr. DeMille. Oh, man. I knew Chris well. I loved his head. I didn't even touch on that. Vampira. I mean, I spent a childhood in the House of Fame, and what credit do I get for this? Bupkis. That's what I get. I've had lunch at the Brown Derby. I, I, I've spent the evening at the Coconut Grove. You know, I mean, I lived the dream, pal. And yet you call me obscure.
I apologize, Charles. I apologize. Maybe I spoke out of turn.
Listen, if I'm not so obscure, why is there a star on my dressing room door? Huh? Yeah, exactly. You can't answer that one, can you? I didn't think so.
You got me.
And how is it that my trailer in the Tumbler House Tower parking lot is off limits to everyone but me? Huh? How come?
It's professional courtesy.
Yes, exactly. Do you know how much money I made for this studio back in the 40s and 50s? Oh, wait a minute. Never mind. It's the wrong speech. I got confused.
Yeah. So,
There's a lot to
yeah.
There's a lot to tell. We're about to, actually, we are entering several things. Firstly, we're entering Holy Week. So by the time you see this, ladies and gentlemen, it'll be Monday in Holy Week. But Easter this year, I guess Friday and Saturday, Good Friday and Holy Saturday, the 18th and 19th of April, 2025, the 250th anniversary of Paul Revere's ride and the battles of Lexington, Concord, and Menotomy, which are going to be greatly celebrated. And then on the 21st, I guess the 22nd, 21st will be Patriots Day this year in Boston. And around the same time, it'll be Powder House Day down in New Haven, Connecticut, commemorating Benedict Arnold taking the powder and bringing it up to join the siege of Boston. So,
I didn't know that was a thing. That's interesting.
Oh yeah, every year they have the reenactment, and the mayor of New Haven plays the mayor of the time, who initially refused to give Arnold the keys to the arsenal, to the powder magazine, and the powder house, and he said basically, "You give me the keys, or I'll blow the doors open." And of course, if he'd done that, the whole thing would have gone up. So, faced with this kind of misadventure, the mayor gave up the keys, and Arnold emptied the powder house and took the supplies from New Haven all the way up to Boston. And it was, of course, after the events of 18th and 19th April, 1775, that the siege of Boston began, and the colonies really went into rebellion. And that they were in a very anomalous position until the 4th of July, 1776. So that is the 250th anniversary, and very few people are celebrating it, the semi-quincentennial of our country, as opposed to 50 years ago when I was a boy, and you couldn't escape the bicentennial. It was everywhere, in every way. Do you know the state of California the legislature voted down a bill to start a commission to celebrate the anniversary?
Wow.
Well, it's not important, not when you've got a creature like Newsom. Why celebrate the past when you've got, perfection in power?
That's what I always say.
Let me put this another way. Would you be commemorating the anniversary of Arcadia's founding if our Lord came in the second coming? Of course not. You'd be more focused on that. Well, in California, you don't think about the revolution. You need to focus on the big pile of garbage, or on the governor, who's just perfection itself, and the legislature, the Bordello boys, as they might be called. What a Anyway, so that's coming up. Is the beginning of the 250th anniversary celebrations, such as they're going to be. But you notice they're very muted. Nobody's really talking about it.
Right. Well, there's a
And
lot going
that's
on.
well, there is in certain areas, certain places, very locally, but you've got to know what you're looking for. I think just for fun, um, I am going to give you, and you can put it on the you can put it. Let's see, semi-quincentennial is how we say it. Semi-quincentennial. The federal setup for the celebration is called America 250. I'm going to give you that, which you can put up. I mean, ladies and gentlemen, I'm a Tory through and through, but you know, we really should be honoring the birth of our country, such as it is. Uh, if either of your parents were illegitimate, they'd still be your parents. You know, that's how I feel about it. Uh, Now the
Okay.
other thing that I will give you. Now it's 1 year, 2 months, 21 days. They have a countdown. They have the partners, state and territory commissions. Now these are a list of the commissions, like California. We don't have a commission. Celebrates. Oh, we do. What do you know? They have put together a commission. Uh, oh no. Well, no. You know what? They're celebrating 175 years of the state of California. Anyway, but this is maybe they've come up with something new recently, but they had voted it down. That's interesting. Most of the states now have commissions set up. All right, well, I'm going to give you that too. And that should, I hope, bring you, allow you to participate wherever uh, your own private setup is. So, ask your town, your county, what they're doing for the semi-quincentennial, and get ready for the celebration. Um, if, like myself, you're a loyalist, be ready to cheer the loyalist reenactors for the next 7 years.
It's interesting. So are the U.S. Virgin Islands a state?
No, they're a territory. See, it
It's,
says state and territory commissions.
oh, state and territory. Okay. I was
You
gonna
know,
say
the United States territories, don't you?
I don't know all of them. Northern Mariana Islands. I knew Guam.
Guam, the
Um.
Northern Marianas, American Samoa. Those are the three in the Pacific.
Hmm.
And then in the Caribbean, we have Puerto Rico and the U.S. Virgin Islands. And of course, there's the District of Columbia, which is not a state. Well, I mean, it might be a state of mind, but it's not a state of the union.
Hmm. Interesting. All right. Let us move
But
along. We have a lot to do. Oh, anything
we
else,
do.
Charles?
Yes, we've got to make the big announcement.
Oh, right. Yes. Okay.
Our ladies and gentlemen, we are going to be taking a break for a month, starting with Holy Week. Strangely enough, I'm going on tour for 3 weeks, starting next week. I'll be spending Easter actually in Preston, England. Easter and Holy Week. So if you're a fan of the Institute of Christ the King or a pre-55 person, meet me in Preston. But try not to be impressed in Preston. I've got to get better riders. That just stank. Anyway, seriously, the for the first week will be in the Midlands. Second week will be something I've longed to do my entire life, and thankfully, due to one of our patrons, I'm actually going to be able to do it, which is a tour of the West Country, from Cornwall to Glastonbury and Winchester and Salisbury and all that. Maybe even go back to Portsmouth and see the beautiful St. Agatha's, which I really love. It's a ordinariate church I fell in love with last time. And then the last week will be London, Edinburgh, and Glasgow. So that's what I've got ahead of me. So we should the weekend of the 17th. I don't know if it'll be Saturday or Sunday, but we should probably be reconvening then.
Yeah.
This will do a number of things. It will allow Vinny to air out the various crypts and alcoves where the I don't want to say unneeded, because nobody at Tumbler House is unneeded, but where the well, let's just say where people not needed during the summer will be, well, estivating, for want of a better word.
Right. The estivations will be taking care of that. And as I said on the pre-show, the meeting with the Center for Concern, the Center of Concern, excuse me, Tyrone.
Center for Concern.
Yeah, it didn't go as well as we had hoped. So
it didn't go well.
I need to get a little bit more involved. Some ruffled feathers, a little bit ruffled feathers. Okay,
it was like the shootout at the OK Corral. What are you talking about?
Look, it doesn't mean anything, Charles. Like, it's just
doesn't mean anything.
It's just men with toys. Okay, it's just men with toys.
The two gentlemen and the lady from the center went diving under the desks when Tyrone and the boys opened fire.
Well, that's naive. I mean, what is that going to do? What is that going to do? This isn't an earthquake. Even in an earthquake, diving under a desk, what is it going to do? It shows you how smart they are. Yeah, dive under the desk. Oh, we've people are shooting guns. Let's just dive under the desk. Okay.
Well, yeah, but the holes are in the wall and not in the desk, so they weren't that smart. That stupid, were they?
Okay.
And what did Chief Clancy say when they called the cops and they arrived? The chief looks around and he asks them, "Well, were any of you wounded?" Well, no. Ah, well then, no harm, no foul.
Exactly. You took the words out of my mouth. Yes, no harm, no foul. What's the problem?
Well, they felt differently, hence the lawsuit.
Yeah.
I wasn't supposed to talk about the lawsuit. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Mental distress. Yeah, great.
Well, they did what they did. They felt their lives were in danger.
Assault.
That's
really?
Assault.
Really?
Attempted assault with a deadly weapon.
What we're going to do?
That's what they're claiming. Now, mind you, they've got 3 witnesses, i.e. themselves. Everyone else claims none of it ever happened. And the chief claims he had no evidence. He was pulling the bullets out of the wall. He said he couldn't find any evidence of it.
Whose bullets?
Well, that was what he said. Then he said they were lost. He said, "How do we know they didn't fire first?" And so they said, "If we'd fired first, the bullets wouldn't be behind us." And his response was, "Oh, now you're forensic experts, are you? I see. Very good. Where'd you get your training in forensic science then?" So, in ballistics and all that, he questioned them, and that's another part of the lawsuit. They felt that his questions were improper and impertinent, as in, "So now you're experts in ballistics." He asked the question, and then they looked at him like he was mad. And then he said, "Excuse me, who's the chief of police in this town, and who are the outsiders, huh? Who invited you here anyway?" And then they said, "Mr. Franchini," and they said, "Well, but that's the last time he does that." None of this was helpful, I'm told.
Yeah, so, I don't know, it's a whole mess. I have to talk with Tyrone. I mean, it was a good. It's good on paper, right? Like, I mean, you can get more with a kind word and a gun than just a kind word. So,
Yeah, that's what they tell
but
you. But I, I think you might want to wait for the other party to have a gun to actually make this a little more believable. But and I don't think the brick through the hotel room window was that night was much help either.
well, that's just standard. That's just our delivery service. I mean, that's I don't understand. That's really confusing to me. There, I mean, that's a tree. I mean, that's
Why would they be upset? Yeah, well,
I mean,
yeah, if you value your lives, get out of Arcadia tomorrow. What kind of a message does that give?
the people who buy from the bookstore, they feel honored to get the brick. They message me in excitement. I can't wait for the brick.
Well,
So
I don't know. I next time don't put them up at the Oak Tree Inn, and above all, not on the bottom floor.
okay. All right. So we've got that all behind us. Yeah. So we'll be gone for a month. We'll be back on the weekend of the 17th. Yeah.
It's a spring break. Now I understand that you and the top executives are going on a fact-finding visit to Arcadia's sister city of St. John's in the Bahamas.
That's right. We have a rich and storied history together. The two, Arcadia and St. John's, we're keeping that up.
Keeping it alive.
Keeping it alive.
Keeping hope alive. It's funny. The signature cocktail of the first cabin in Arcadia is the Rum Runner, which is a testimony to our long history with St. John's.
Absolutely. Absolutely. A lot of people don't know that it's our sister city, and we haven't done a good enough job promoting that and telling the story of these two cities.
No, it's true. It's true. It goes all the way back, actually, to Prohibition.
Right.
I mean, the era. I mean,
yeah, no,
the period.
Yeah, 1920s. Yeah.
Yeah, the period of I mean, it's not that Prohibition is what. I mean, it's a nice place.
Yeah, it's yeah, right. Yeah, yeah. You're everything's fine, Charles. Yeah, we know what you meant. The 1920s. All right. So, you okay? Yeah. Why are you looking strangely? This is.
Well, you're always saying loose lips sink ships, and I'm, a little. I don't want to go through another corporate retreat.
No, don't worry. Nothing's gonna happen to you on air. All right. So, the discussion topic: who is an underrated Catholic figure that more people should know about? Saints, thinkers, or historical Catholic persons who deserve more attention. We have a ton of submissions, so we're pretty much going to spend the whole episode going through this. We're going to start. I'm sorry. Actually, we have a special request. I'm so sorry. From David, one of the patrons. So he has a prayer request for us. He says, Don Vincenzo and Charles, may I humbly ask your prayers for the repose of the soul of my mother, who died February 27th, and the consolation of my father, her husband of 63 years. Thank you both from the bottom of my heart. So can we honor
Sure.
that? Yeah.
In the Father, and Son, and the Holy Ghost. Amen. Hail Mary, full of grace, the Lord is with thee. Blessed art thou amongst women, and blessed is the fruit of thy womb, Jesus.
Holy Mary, Mother of God, pray for us sinners, now and at the hour of our death. Amen.
Eternal rest grant unto her, O Lord. Let perpetual light shine upon her. May her soul, and the souls of all the faithful departed, to the mercy of God, rest in peace.
Amen.
In the Father, Son, the Holy Ghost. Amen. And please, ladies and gentlemen, when you see this, as whenever you see us do this kind of thing, please feel free to join in the prayer, unite your prayer with ours. a great many people praying together can accomplish a lot, especially the relief of the souls in purgatory, the holy souls. Uh, and of course, we hope that our loved ones have gone straight to heaven. But let's just say the statistics are rarely on one side for that. And if they have, if Aunt Martha or your sainted father are in heaven, then all the prayers you give for them will go to someone who can use them. No prayer is ever wasted. So,
Okay. So let's get started with the underrated Catholic figures. First one is from you. You have a petition actually going on relating to Margaret Pole. Charles, can you tell
I
us
do.
about who she is and actually your petition as well?
Well, I can. The petition is for her sainthood. She's Blessed Margaret Pole, and it's kind of an interesting further development, which I'll tell you about momentarily. But she uh, was a Plantagenet. Uh, Now, the houses of Lancaster and York were the two branches of the House of Plantagenet. Lancaster died out. York uh, died out in the male line. But as you know, in England, they have female succession if the male line dies out, which is why the Stuarts eventually inherited the throne because they were Tudors in the female line. Well, the Tudors were Lancasters in the female line, but York was still somewhat superior in terms of the distance of the throne, although Henry VII had killed Richard III and taken the throne. So Margaret Pole was actually a better claimant to the throne than Henry VIII. Now, mind you, she didn't pursue it. She and hers had sworn allegiance to Henry VII. They got along with the new system, etc. Her younger son, Geoffrey, she had sent off to be a priest, and he ended up as the last Catholic Archbishop of Canterbury under Queen Mary. But because she had a closer connection to the crown than Henry VIII, and because she refused to accept his new religion, he was afraid of her. And she was kind of a tough lady besides. So he ordered her attainted for treason. They took her to the Tower, and she broke free of her guards and said, "Sir Headsman, if you want my head, you'll have to come for it." And so he chased her all over the chamber, wielding the axe at her, and every now and then, getting her with it. And finally, he got her. She slipped and fell, and he chopped her head off. But she didn't make it easy for him. And so she was a tough lady. Um, I've always thought her, in a sense, a little bit like Empress Zita, frankly.
Hmm.
So she has a descendant. Interestingly enough, one of her earlier descendants was a fellow called Lord Rawdon, who was the commander of the Volunteers of Ireland, which was a Catholic loyalist unit during the Revolution. And they gave us one of the, if not the first, certainly one of the first St. Patrick's Day parades in New York during the Revolution under the British. But he, in turn, had a descendant, the Earl of Loudon, and they are the descendants of Margaret Pole. Well, the main line of the Earls died out, and it went to cousins, who are in Australia, and they are Catholic again. So the current Earl of Loudon has become a promoter of his ancestress's canonization. And I found out about that when I was doing some research on Catholic loyalists. It led me to Lord Rawdon. I wanted to see who his descendants were. Took me to the Earls of Loudon, which took me to this fellow, which took me to that petition you saw. Pray to Saint Margaret, the Blessed Margaret Pole. She was the tutor of Mary Tudor, who would be Queen Mary. She was a close friend of Catherine of Aragon and comforted her during her expulsion from court after Henry VIII got tired of her. A great woman, a strong woman, and the kind of woman that the church needs today.
All right. Um. All right, let's read some suggestions from the patrons. First one, let's start with Andrews from New Jersey, elder and younger. Elder first, obviously. Saint Maria Goretti. I won't bother with an explanation. I'm sure Charles can tell her story better than I could.
Well, of course, she died rather than submit to rape, and so she's the patroness of purity, and an amazing girl. She forgave her murderer, who ended up becoming one of the witnesses for her sanctity and was actually present for her canonization.
Andrew the Younger says, the first two people that came to mind are John Sr. and historian William Thomas Walsh. Not complete unknowns, but certainly underrated and should be more widely known. But for some reason, they have not been promoted by what I like to call the Catholic podcast industrial complex.
Oh, Big Almond is behind it all. Big Almond, it's the Catholic podcast industrial complex is yet another example of Big Almond's infiltration into every aspect of life.
Yeah, look, we're not attached to this, okay? These mainstream Catholic podcasts, look at they're
I'm not saying they're all.
Yeah.
Well, I'm not saying they're all attached to it, but it's always a question. So ask them, if you happen to be on with, I don't know, Vande Radio or Taylor Marshall or anything like that, just ask him, so, how do you feel about Big Almond?
They
look at you,
yeah.
No.
Dead giveaway.
Dead giveaway. If they look at you like they don't know what you're talking about or you're a little weird.
Yeah.
So, and you heard it here first.
Yeah.
You tell them all we're onto them. We know.
People need to start asking these questions.
Yeah, they do. Alongside, why don't they make green Kool-Aid anymore? See, that's another issue.
That's right. All right. So could you tell us a little bit? So I think we're all familiar, or most of us at least, I think are fairly familiar with William Thomas Walsh. He's got a number of books, biographical books on some notable figures. What was it? Saint Teresa of Avila? Saint Teresa of Avila and
Saint Teresa of Avila, Isabella, Queen Isabella of Spain.
Yeah.
Isabella, the Last Crusader. He has Philip II. He has characters of the Inquisition. He was a real specialist in Spanish history. And he had lost his faith when he went to Yale. And he, afterwards, when he came back to him, he said he was resolved to regain his faith down to the last sacramental, which I've always thought was a nice phrase. And when he was doing his research on the Inquisition, he went to Harvard, where Professor Merriman, who was supposed to be the big non-Catholic historian on the Inquisition, Merriman had cited a book that was in the Harvard Library and would have been the copy he himself had used. Well, the page reference he gave hadn't even been cut open. In those days, you cut books open. They would come with the pages still stuck together.
Right.
And so as you read them, you had to cut them open with a knife. And it hadn't even been opened. It had nothing to do with what Merriman cited. So that destroyed his faith in Merriman as a decent historian. At any rate, so William Thomas Walsh was really the dean of Catholic American historians in the early 20th century. John Sr. was an academic in Kansas, at the University of Kansas, who with a couple of partners developed the Integrated Studies program, which was basically a new way of looking at the Middle Ages. And it produced a bunch of Catholic converts and a lot of married couples and a lot of religious vocations, which of course was not what the University of Kansas, being a state school, wanted to do, and so eventually was shut down. But he wrote some really tremendous books, including The Death of Christian Culture and The Rebirth of Christian Culture. And he was the one who made the famous statement after he started going to the SSPX about the terrible Archbishop of Milwaukee, Weakland, who would later have to leave office a week early because his boyfriend emerged and wanted money. When he was asked, how can you possibly go to a schismatic mass? His response was, if Weakland's in, who could possibly be out?
You've quoted that on the show before. That's how I know John Sr. is actually that quote.
It's one of my favorites.
Yeah.
I knew him. We talked on the phone a number of times. I never met him other than on the phone, but we had a lot of long conversations. You know, moaning over the state of the church and the world. Luckily, everything's improved since then.
Yes. Andrew has one more addition. In terms of living Catholics who should be more widely known, I would add our very own Theo Howard, a.k.a. Vendée Radio. For my money, other than Charles, there's not a more serious and learned lay Catholic thinker today. Theo not only knows and understands the history and theology, but can then tie the loose threads together and elucidate the resulting implications. For an example of what I'm talking about, I would direct everyone to Theo's two-part series on the Ralliement and its role in our current crisis.
Well, I can only agree with that, except, of course, that Theo is more serious than I am. I'd have to say that. I mean, I'm not serious all the time.
No?
No, not all the time. I joke from time to time. On rare occasions, here and there, now and then. Kind of, maybe, sort of.
So does Theo stay sane inside insanity?
He does. But he does it in a very different way. And he's married, so I think that helps a bit of sanity. If you've got the right wife, and he does.
That's good. Okay, James says William George Ward, who lived during the 19th century, mathematician and lay theologian, and one of the prime movers of the Tractarians, and was critical of St. John Henry Newman being merely an aesthete partial to antiquary. Ward's rigorous thinking from his mathematical training made him a powerful critic. He was an early supporter of Tract 90, and because of his support, Oxford withdrew his degrees. Ward was the spear point of the Tractarians, leaving Anglicanism and coming home to Rome. His defense of papal infallibility brought clarity to a much maligned dogma. Chesterton's love of paradox is attributable to his reading of Ward. He was a co-founder of Sheed and Ward, a father of Newman's biographer, and his 1844 ideal of a Christian church was the last blow to Anglicanism, claiming the branch theory as part of the early church. Reading Ward created Father Ronald Knox.
Well, I can't really add much to that, except, okay, yeah.
That's pretty epic. He's the Ward and Sheed and Ward. I'm sold on that. I'll tell you
that.
Well,
he's the father of the Ward and Sheed and
Ward. Oh, is
Maisie
he? Oh,
Ward.
Okay. I see.
Maisie Ward married Wilfred Sheed. Oh, no, sorry, no, Wilfred. Frank Sheed. Frank Sheed was an Australian apologist. Maisie was this Ward's daughter.
I see. Okay.
And then when the infamous Father Feeney brought them to New York, he was walking down the street arm in arm with them. And he said, I'm the and in Sheed and Ward.
Yep. All right. The Malebranche Davidian says, I nominate Blaise Pascal. I would appreciate him being analyzed through the customary lens of angel from heaven or demon from hell. Ooh. Charles? I love this.
Poor soul from purgatory. No, I mean, Pascal, his thinking went so far, but no further. And I'm not even being cute when I say that, because he was not a great or a deep thinker, but he certainly was a master to a degree of common sense. I mean, the famous Pascal's wager is about as commonsensical as you're going to get.
Yeah, Definitely.
It's not deep, it's not inspired, it's not, but I mean, it makes perfect sense. You know, uh, if you bet on the truth of God and the faith, well, if it's not true and there's nothing, you haven't lost anything. And if it is true and you bet against it, well, then you will lose. So, I mean, I honestly, of all of his thinking, is he was he was not deep. That's why I was impressed by the Jansenists, who appeared very pure. But you know what they used to say about them? As pure as angels and as proud as devils.
That's right.
Impurity is an obvious sin that anybody can pick up on. Not being impure is something we should all try to do, obviously. But not being impure is obvious if you're not impure. But pride is not that easy to discern. I mean, we know any number of modern church figures who were very proud of their humility and trumpeted all over the place. Well, calling yourself humble or being called humble does not make you humble. And if you call attention to being humble, it's very difficult to see how you could be humble because you're calling attention to being humble.
So, a shallow philosopher, that's kind of an oxymoron.
Well, not really. I mean, you can have common sense without having depth.
Hmm.
I mean,
Yeah, like Thomas
you
Paine.
could be, well, indeed, and you could be very. He had no sense at all and no brains, but no, you could be deep, quote unquote, without really a grasp of the immediate.
Hmm. Okay. Anita, superfan Anita, says, I cast my vote for Blessed Clemens August von Galen, who became Bishop of Munster in 1933, the same year Hitler came to power. Even back then, he was criticized for being entirely 13th century, meaning he wasn't, meaning he was staunchly traditional, immersed in supernatural faith, and entirely without human respect. He expected every day to get carted off to concentration camp for publicly criticizing the regime's predations against the church and against the most vulnerable in society. But it only motivated him to say as much as he could for as long as he could. He went out to greet the Allied forces rolling in at the end of the war, but did not hesitate to speak out against their mistreatment of his people. He deserves to be canonized in post and in haste, but alas, is too much of an embarrassment to the current College of Bishops. I recommend the biography of Blessed Clemens by Daniel Utrecht. It's called The Lion of Munster, the bishop who roared against the Nazis. At the beginning of chapter 6, we find this great little story. Quote, the Bishop of Munster was preaching about family life. As usual, there were Nazi informers in the cathedral. This time, too, there was a heckler who says, celibates have no business talking about marriage and children, came a shout from the congregation. The bishop slammed his fist on the pulpit and shouted back, I will not tolerate any reflection upon the Führer in my cathedral.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Well, they called him the Lion of Munster for a reason. So I certainly can't disagree with that.
I feel like if you're a bishop and you get a nickname, that does wonders for your street cred. I mean, that's just like you're in like Dagger John. Like you're pretty legit at that point. All right. Joseph says the Catholic general Gaston de Saulnier is largely unknown. I'm sorry.
Sony, yeah. Sony.
Could you tell us about? That's all he says, Charles. Could you tell us about the general?
Yeah, sure can. He very devout. He was a general in the French army, fought the Prussians during the Franco-Prussian War, um, and was like a Latter-day Crusader. Well, when the French Zouaves, the Papal Zouaves, came home in 1870 after Rome fell to the Sardinians, they immediately joined up with Dussoni, and they were the only ones of his command who didn't flee after the Battle of Patay, uh, in which they were really smacked around. I believe his cause for canonization has been introduced. Let me see if I know what I'm talking about. I believe also, uh, I'm wondering, did he? Yeah, he was a mystic, all right. Uh, he has his great. He says, "I don't know any other vocation except that of loving God," he said. Uh, and he was the Carmel of Verdun uh, is devoted to him, and he was very devout. He was a good royalist, even under Napoleon. He stayed loyal to the Comte de Chambord, Henri V, but he kept going through school, and then he yeah, he was renowned for his personal piety at all times. He says in May 1865, the Emperor Napoleon III, having expressed a desire to come to Algeria, Sony was approached to be the interpreting officer responsible for accompanying him on his travels. He refused, to the great displeasure of certain officers, who would not have let such a wonderful opportunity to enter the Emperor's good graces and obtain rapid advancement pass by. Quote, "I feel faithful," he explained, "faithful to God, to our princes, the Comte de Chambord, to all that deserves faithfulness. I feel faithful to my friends, who would not be such if they were not first the friends of God. Every day I am growing more and more in love with the Church, and the hatred that its enemies, as cruel as they are powerless, bear for it in this sad century, rekindles my love evermore." End of quote. Um, so he was not to be moved, and he wouldn't surrender in 1870. It took the uh, it took the government. So the Battle of Loigny, not Patay. Patay they did well. This is the Battle of Loigny that uh, they fought. He was wounded, and 2/3 of his left leg was amputated. Uh, they called him the Martyr Loigny, and he uh, he died in 1887, a cripple,
Hmm.
but ever faithful, always praying, etc.
All right. Submission from Q the Great and Terrible.
Oh boy,
I don't
I trust the plan.
trust the plan. Well,
Trust the plan.
what's that all about?
Oh, you know QAnon.
Is he talking about QAnon? I like to think that he's talking about Q from Star Trek.
Or it could be Q from the James Bond films.
Well, I guess,
Or all three.
or all three, maybe. Yeah, I don't know.
I, I don't either. But I do say trust the plan.
Great. All right, so he says, I'll go with Anton Bruckner. He was an Austrian composer of the German Romantic School who worked primarily in sacred music and symphonies, of which he wrote 9. His sacred music echoes the Renaissance style of the Roman school. Think Palestrina, but uses his unique harmonic language. His symphonic music is viewed as more conservative when compared to his contemporary Johannes Brahms, but in my view, captures a uniquely Catholic approach to Romanticism. Since musicians outside the scope of required boomer knowledge are rarely discussed, I would like to hear Charles's opinion on the man and his music. Charles? Wow, shots fired.
Wow. Obviously, no one has ever, this man has not heard the greatest mass composer of our time, Leonard Bernstein. But, I don't believe that for a minute. I just had to conform to boomer stupidity. You know, there's, as a boomer, I have to occasionally make statements I don't believe, out of solidarity with my generation.
Mm-hmm.
You didn't know Leonard Bernstein had written the Masters? Considered somewhat blasphemous by some people.
What is that? What, like put your hand in the hand of the man, or one of those?
No, not quite. But look it up. I don't want to discuss it. It's
Okay.
distasteful.
Okay.
It's distasteful. But no, Bruckner. Well, I mean, I'd agree with his summation. And yeah, I kind of prefer Bruckner to Brahms. I like Brahms, especially the Lullaby, which I'll be listening to later. After we finish the show, I'll be listening to Brahms' Lullaby.
Okay, beautiful.
There was some Catholic recently was going on about how Bruckner was instrumental in his conversion, but I don't remember who it was.
All right. Final one for the patrons. Helvicio recommends Nikola Subic Zrinski, the Viceroy of Croatia and hero of the siege of Zigetvar, which Cardinal Richelieu dubbed, quote, the battle which saved civilization. Wow.
Well, it's true. It's true. He was a great foe of the Turks. And really, well, there have been several things like the siege of Belgrade and so forth, where the Turks were stopped. And if they hadn't been, they would have overwhelmed us all. And that was certainly one of them. And Zrinski is a great hero, not just to Croatians either.
All right, so that's it for the patrons. What we're going to do as a finale, we're going to do a fun little thing, because I had put this question out on Twitter, and there were over 300 responses, well over 300. So what Charles has suggested we do, kind of a fun idea, is I'll just read the names, and then Charles will say stop, and then I'll stop, and then he'll choose someone that really resonates with him, and he'll talk about that person. So it's sort of picture like a Wheel of Fortune wheel turning around, or maybe The Price is Right or something, and where it stops, we don't know. It might be, bankrupt, or you might get like the Hawaii vacation. We don't know. Okay.
You might go to the Bahamas, St. John.
Exactly. So that's what we're gonna do. And we'll see what happens, I guess. All right. Mary of Egypt, John Climacus, St. Vincent Ferrer, Julian of Norwich, Skanderbeg, Queen Cat.
Skanderbeg, great hero, fought the Albanian hero, fought the Turks, and due to his connection with the Holy Roman Empire, the double eagle was his symbol, and it is now the symbol of Albania. But the Albanians call themselves the Sons of Skanderbeg. And he was named an athlete of Christ and a hero of the Christian nation by the Pope.
Wow. Okay. Queen Catherine of Aragon.
Stop. She was, of course, Henry VIII's first wife. Wonderful woman. I hope to see her tomb in Peterborough Cathedral on this trip.
Queen St. Margaret of Scotland.
Stop. She was a Anglo-Saxon princess raised in Hungary after her parents were pushed out. shipwrecked on the coast of Scotland, married the king, and really civilized the country through her sanctity and her gentleness. Hard to think of Scots being civilized through gentility, but nevertheless, it happened.
Okay. Blessed Bartolo Longo, Saint Gregory Palamas, Carol Houselander.
Stop. She was an English laywoman, 20th century, wrote a lot of really interesting theological books about basically wrestling with the faith and wrestling with modernity on the basis of the Catholic faith.
Yeah, that actually was one of the most popular of the Twitter recommendations, actually. That's interesting. Any particular book recommendations from her? Okay.
Not offhand. I can't think of any.
Okay. Cornelio Fabro, Torquato Tasso, Pauline Jaricot, Bishop Moises Carmona, Blessed, I apologize for the pronunciation here, Alozihe Stepanak.
Yeah, Aloysius Stepinac. Stop. Archbishop of Zagreb during World War II, foe of the communists afterwards. Son of the Vincenti of Croatia.
Ah. All right. Father Peter Fellner, Savonarola, St. Rose of Lima, Mother Angelica. Okay. Yeah. Father Ronald Knox, Rene Girard, Isabel of Castile.
Stop. She's a venerable queen, the Queen of Spain, Columbus's sponsor. Her beatification was stopped at the last minute for fear of anti-Semitism.
Of course.
Well, there's, they care very much how Catholics feel about how they practice their faith. It only makes sense that we should have to think about that for us,
Yeah. John Valette, Father James V. Schall, the author of The Cloud of Unknowing, Archbishop Olav Engelbrektsson.
He was the great defender of the faith during the Protestant revolt in Norway.
Father Paul Mankowski. Let's see here. King Ferdinand II of Aragon.
The husband of Isabella.
Saint Peregrine, Saint Moreno, Saint Gemma, Jose Maria Escriva, Donoso Cortez.
Stop. Great Spanish political writer of the 19th century.
Blessed Karl of Austria. Louis.
They'd say nothing. I've written enough about him. My book on his wife is coming out. What more do you want out of me?
Oh man, that gentleman I think chimed in on a crowd where he just didn't know. He doesn't know the Tumblr House crowd, basically. Long story short, or the Coulombe crowd. Right. Reginald Garrigou. Is it Garrigou or Garrigou Lagrange?
Garrigou. Stop. Famous Thomist theologian of the pre-conciliar era and afterwards. But of course, he was very famous in the 40s and 50s, and then with the new theology and the general, stupefaction after World War II, after Vatican II. His works kind of went into obscurity.
They're coming back a little bit because Father Ripperger highly touts him on the videos, and it actually got me to read one of his books, The 3 Ages of the Interior Life. I think is one of his biggies. Very good read. Yeah. Saint Margaret Costello, Saint Isidore, Doctor of the Church, Carol Robinson and Ed Willock of Integrity Magazine. Ooh.
Stop.
Ooh.
Yes, Carol Willick and Ed Robinson. After World War II, they wanted to present a strictly Catholic voice to America, which is something, of course, we didn't really do a lot of. Integrity magazine was sort of like Triumph, only in the late 40s and the 50s.
Oh, okay. St. Thomas Aquinas, Bishop Joseph Sartoris, St. Benedict Biscop, G.K. Chesterton, Christopher Dawson, Alasdair MacIntyre, St. Anselm of Canterbury, the Victorines, Avery Cart. Oh, yeah.
The Victorines, stop. The Victorines were a number of theologians from the medieval Parisian monastery of St. Victor. They were canons regular and very, well, it was mystical theology, really.
Avery Cardinal Dulles, Father Fahey.
Stop. Father Fahey was an Irish theologian. The interwar period, a bit into the 50s, Holy Ghost father and a great apostle of the kingship of Christ.
Right. Teilhard de Chardin, Bishop Barron, Saint Felicitas and her 7 sons.
They stopped. The martyr of Rome, as were her sons. Her servant was Perpetua, and they gave their name to the most important Catholic church in the world, St. Felicitas and Perpetua in San Marino, California.
Saint Peter Damian, Tertullian, Jean Borella, and Johannes Trithemius. Saint Gregory of Nyssa, Pierre Nicole, Marshall McLuhan, popular pick.
Yeah, stop. He was an interesting man. He was a Canadian semanticist. He studied the work of media and so on, and communications, but he was also a devout Catholic, and a traditionally minded Catholic as well. He was the one who gave us the phrase, "The medium is the message."
Oh, really? Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, that's really interesting. I'm going to have to look him up. Okay, died 1980. All right, Romano Guardini.
Stop. Romano Guardini was despite his name, was a German theologian, and he wrote some very interesting things on the liturgy and theology and all. He was a priest. I enjoy his work, but some people don't.
He's a big name, but I just haven't dipped my toes into his writings yet. Okay. Father Lassange, Saint Philip of Jesus, Saint Petronax, Louis of Granada, Saint John of Cologne, Father Pedro Arupe, and Angela di Foligno.
Well, Pedro Arupe was the general of the Jesuits who turned them into what they are during the 60s.
Saint Andre Bessette.
Stop. He was a friend of my great-grandmother's, or vice versa. He was a French-Canadian priest at the Shrine of St. Joseph in Montreal, and was a great confidant and miracle worker and so on. But whenever my great-grandmother, and she wasn't the only one, would get too much weirded out by life, she'd go up to Montreal from New Bedford and go see him.
Blessed Sandra Sabatini, Saint Mary of Edessa, Tim Gray, Saint Veronica Giuliani, Don Bosco, Father James Nugent of Liverpool, Meister Eckhart, Archbishop Marcel Lefebvre, Saint Isidore of Seville, Pope Leo the 13th, Archbishop Luigi Maria Carli, Walter Ciszek.
Stop. Walter Ciszek was the priest of the Catholic Church in Moscow. He spent time in Siberia, and of course the author of the great book With God in Russia.
Alphonsus Rodriguez, Madame Elizabeth of France, sister of
Louis XVI.
Yes.
Stop. Madame Royale. She has just been made a servant of God, and so the cause for her canonization goes on. She was executed during the revolution. She was murdered during the terror by the revolutionists.
All right. Archbishop Marcel Francois Marie Joseph Lefebvre, CSSP, FSSPX. Thank you.
We already touched on him. You repeated him twice.
Yeah, sorry. Oh, is that the same person? All right.
Yeah.
So all right, Savonarola, I said again. We're getting a lot of repeats. I'm sorry. President Garcia Moreno of Ecuador.
Stop. Excellent Catholic president, one of the very few, and his murder was planned in the U.S. Embassy.
Whoa. Saint Gerard, Saint Dominic Savio, Saint Ambrose, E. Michael Jones, Stigmatist Rhoda Wise, Saint Simon of Trent.
Stop.
Okay.
Saint Simon of Trent was a boy who was believed to have been murdered by some Jewish folks as a ritual murder. And in the 60s, they discontinued his cultus as being anti-Semitic.
What's new? All right. Father Nicholas Gruner, Catherine Doherty, Madeline Delbrel, Russell Kirk, Dr. Ronald P. MacArthur, Gerard Manley Hopkins, Jacques Philippe, Herbert McCabe, Queen Christina of Sweden.
Stop. She was the daughter of Gustavus Adolphus, the Lion of the North, and she gave up the throne of Sweden to convert to Catholicism.
Wow. All right. Gene Wolfe.
Stop. Science fiction writer. I knew him very slightly, but a very fine writer.
Johann Cerclaes, Count of Tilly. Saint Pius X. Joseph Schiedler. Saint Charles du Foucauld. Bossuet. I guess he means Bishop Bossuet. He just said Bossuet. Matthias. Was it Sheben?
Shaben. Stop. Very, very excellent 19th century German theologian who should be studied a lot more.
Augustin del Nos, Saint Albert, Saint Clement Mary Hofbauer.
Stop. Co-patron of the city of Vienna. Brought a lot of romantics during and after the Napoleonic Wars in both not Berlin, but Warsaw and Vienna into the faith.
Franco, Imelda Lambertini, Jean de Brebeuf, Saint Martin de Porres. A lot of Saint Veronica Giuliani's.
Yeah, she was a great saint, but go ahead.
Hugh O'Flaherty, Alice von Hildebrand, Saint Lawrence of Rome, Francis Cardinal George, Dorothy Day, Austin Ferrer, Herbert Kelly, St. John of Capistrano, Anne de Guinée, Jean-Luc Marion, St. Gemma, Attalus and Alcibiades. And then we're almost at the bottom here. Takashi Nagai, Marjorie Kemp, the Prophet Enoch, Father Andrew Greeley, Father Daniel Berrigan, Father Charles Curran. What's that all about?
The 360s liberals. Move along. Nothing to see here.
I'm gonna
Nothing
like
to
that.
see here. You've all got homes to go to. Move along. Now.
Okay. Ana Garcia de Cuenca, Orlando Fedeli, Frank Duff, Saint Adelaide, Saint Louis the Ninth, Jose Antonio Prima de Rivera, Salazar, Bishop Donald Sanborn, and the final one is Saint Simeon Stylite. And that's
Well,
it.
He was the one that sat on top of the pillar. Stylites meaning pillar person.
Yeah.
Well,
Oh.
you see, I didn't comment on most of them. Most of them I knew, but you know, and those I didn't know. I'm not going to let you know who I don't know.
Well, that's very wise. If you guys, want to go read through that list and comment, it's just on my Twitter. You can just sort of review it. It ended up being quite a resource, actually. So that's a lot of different avenues to explore there. But we are out of time. It's late.
We
where
are
you
indeed.
Charles. Yeah.
It's 1:08 a.m. here in beautiful Trumau. But having said that, we will reconvene in a month. You'll have come back from your whirlwind trip of pina coladas and weird Hawaiian shirts and all the rest of that stuff they do at St. John's. And I give my best to Chico, the fellow that runs Chico's Hideaway there. And I'll do my best in Old England, the roast beef of Old England. And I'll see if I can find the Grail while I'm running around. Although it's kind of pointless because we all know it's in Valencia, but that won't stop me.
Where's the Ark? Where's the Ark?
Not Ararat.
Okay, good to know.
Now, unless you mean the Ark of the Covenant, in which case it's in safekeeping in Washington, D.C.
All right.
I saw the movie.
What? Indiana Jones?
Yeah, Raiders of the Lost Ark.
We've got top men on it. Top men, Charles.
Top men. We have top men on it. Well, you see the thing put away with this warehouse filled with weird things. That scene is second to only one other in my cinematic experience, and that's the scene in Independence Day.
Where they blow up the White House?
Well, no, when the president says, "Well, of course, all that myth about Roswell," and then his security advisor says, "Well, sir."
Wow.
And then when they speak to the alien and they say, "What is it you want? What can we do?" And the alien goes, "You can die."
All right. Okay. I guess that's going to do it for this episode. What is it if it's Monday, Charles?
It is Monday in Holy Week, the Monday before the beginning of the semi-quincentennial of the United States of America. But for now, and once more a month hence, it's off the menu.
And what about the soul you save?
Whether or not we're on the air, it's still quite likely your own.
See you next time, everyone.
God bless you all, and God save the United States of America.